So we're going to talk about mental illness in the IDF and how it is rising tremendously, and how a lot of IDF soldiers are coming back from the war ridden with guilt, filled with guilt and regret and despair and feelings of purposelessness, feelings of moral injury, which is just another way of saying guilt, just feeling terrible inside. Why are all these IDF soldiers feeling so guilty if their war is so righteous? Isn't this what all of the Hosberists keep telling us on YouTube and on X/Twitter? Isn't this what Douglas Murray, that child of Sodom, says all the time? Well, this is a civilizational war. This is a civilizational war. This is a civilizational war. It's a war between civilization and barbarism. It is a war between civilization and savagery. It is a war between those who are civilized and those who are vacuous of any sort of civility. This is a civilizational war between good and evil. Really, then why are so many Israeli soldiers coming back insane? Why are so many Israeli soldiers coming back feeling guilty, feeling purposelessness, feeling like they've done something morally wrong? Why do so many Israeli soldiers return back to Israel feeling like they are in conflict with their own ethics, feeling as if they have declared war upon their own conscience? If you're truly fighting a righteous cause, if you are truly fighting a noble and just cause between good and evil, why are you feeling guilty? Why are you feeling insane? You have soldiers who were deployed to Gaza. They were lied to. They were told that they are fighting a righteous and just cause. They were told by people like Douglas Murray and Ben Shapiro and Joshua Hammer and the rest of those evil people that they were fighting a noble and just war, that they were fighting a civilizational war between good and evil. So they went to Gaza, they followed their orders, they came back from Gaza, they went back home feeling like, oh my God, what have I done? I murdered people. I'm not a righteous person. And they feel empty, purposelessness. They feel despair. They feel guilt-ridden. They feel horrendous regret. And so a lot of them, we're talking thousands upon thousands. Okay, we're talking at least 11,000 soldiers, which is huge, especially for a small country like Israel. We're talking about thousands upon thousands of soldiers feeling guilt and feeling resentment towards the government because they were lied to. They were told that they're fighting a righteous war when they realized that, well, they're not. So let's read this article here. It says here, Israel's longest war is leaving a trail of traumatized soldiers, with suicides also on the rise. Israel's longest war is leaving a trail of traumatized soldiers in its wake. So it says here, Israel's longest war is leaving a trail of traumatized soldiers, with a growing number suffering from mental health illnesses after 2 years of war with Hamas. Reports of post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and other mental health problems are increasing among soldiers, as are suicides. Excuse me, I thought this was a righteous war. Why are you feeling depressed? If you're fighting a righteous cause, do you feel depressed? No, you feel exhilarated. You feel like you are on top of the world. You feel like, wow, I'm putting my life on the line. I'm doing something noble. I'm doing something that's difficult. I'm doing something that's dangerous, but at the same time, that is righteous and noble and just. I am like a knight fighting a dragon. I am like a crusader fighting for Jerusalem or fighting for the rights of Christian pilgrims. I'm doing something righteous. I'm putting my life on the line for something that is noble and just and good. Why would you feel depressed? You only feel depressed. You only feel trauma and mental health issues if you are doing something wrong. No one does righteousness and comes back insane. Insanity, guilt, these types of things, especially guilt. Let's just focus on guilt. Guilt and depression and these things are the cause of internal conflict from within. I should have done something. I should have done the right thing. I should not have done this. I should not have followed orders when I did follow orders. I shouldn't have done that because it led to me doing something that is against my own conscience, that is against my own heart, against my own moral code. And so they feel helpless, they feel depression, they feel these things. So let's see here. So someone in the comment section says, I'm not buying it. Ignorance is not an excuse if you are killing civilians. Those soldiers knew what they were doing. So this is my response to that. Are there Israeli soldiers who are truly evil, who are truly malicious and sadistic, who go into these wars and they knowingly slaughter civilians and they don't feel an inch of regret or guilt about it? Yes, absolutely. They are. So listen, this is a minority of the soldiers. Let's just keep that in mind. Let me just add that in there, add that detail in there for clarification's sake. This is a minority of the soldiers that are feeling guilt. It's still a lot. It's still a substantial number. We're talking at least 11,000 soldiers, but it's still a minority nonetheless. The majority of the IDF doesn't give a damn. They go back home. They don't give a shit. So we're talking about a minority. We're talking about soldiers who are going against the majority. They're going against the mainstream position in the IDF, which is to feel zero guilt and to feel proud about what you're doing, to feel proud about the actions that you have done in Gaza. So we have to give credit to this reality. We have to at least give credit to these people. Secondly, it is absolutely possible to be totally blinded by patriotism and propaganda, right? We have to keep this in mind. It is 100% possible, 100% a part of reality that people are going to be blinded by patriotism, nationalistic propaganda, and blinded by the voices that tell them to do evil. And by voices, I'm talking about the politicians. The voices that tell them, you're doing the right thing, go at it, destroy, kill, etc., etc. You're killing terrorists, blah, blah, blah. It is totally 100% within the realm of reality that this is the case for a lot of people. So you have people who enter these conflicts who do not mean wrong. They really believe they're doing good. And they think they're doing good. And then reality eventually sinks in, and it usually happens when they get back home and they go, oh my God, what have I done? Now, I want to give you an historical precedent for what I'm talking about here. Let's go to the war that everyone talks about, World War II. And let's talk about the villain that everyone talks about, Nazi Germany. Was Nazi Germany evil? Yes. That's a resounding, emphatic yes. Were there Nazi soldiers who were truly evil and who went out of their way to do evil? 100% without a doubt, yes. SS soldiers, you had all these sick bastards going into villages in Eastern Europe and raping and pillaging and slaughtering people and doing all sorts of evil, sick things. Nazi scientists like Joseph Mengele doing experiments. doing experiments on people, etc. Were there German soldiers who were lied to, who were brainwashed into believing that they were fighting a just cause and that they were fighting Bolshevism and that this was a war between civilization and the primitivism of Bolshevism, and they went into the battlefield really believing that they were doing something righteous, and then they saw the atrocities that were done by the SS, and they said, oh my God, what are we doing? This is evil. We were lied to. Absolutely. They were absolutely soldiers like this. And they are people, they are people who will look at who will read about these soldiers, and they will say, hey, they were German soldiers in the Wehrmacht who realized that the war was evil, and that Nazi Germany was evil, and that Hitler wasn't this great hero that they were told he was. So if we can give credit to those Wehrmacht soldiers who were fighting for one of the most evilest empires in history, then we can at least give credit to these IDF soldiers. Because I can tell you right now, it is absolutely within the realm of possibility for soldiers to be brainwashed into fighting for an unjust war. And listen, this happens to regular people. Like, this happens to regular people all the time. How many people are in America who were told that Israel has the most moral army on earth and Israel doesn't do atrocities? Right? There are literally millions of Americans who were told this, especially in the millennial generation. There were millions of Americans who were told Israel's absolutely righteous. I was told that from a very young age, and I believed it. And when I was in high school, I would get into arguments with people about Israel. And I would say, no, Israel's the good guys. Israel is the good guy. Israel's the good guy. No, they're the good guys. No, they're the good guys. And then I started actually doing my own research. And I read this book called Pity the Nation, which is a great book, by the way. And there's a whole section of the book that talks about the Sabra and Shatila massacre, which was a massacre that lasted for several days, which was facilitated by Israel, and it was committed by Lebanese Catholic nationalists. And the Israelis armed and trained these Lebanese Catholic nationalists who were members of a group called the Falange, or the Kataib. And these nationalists raped, murdered, and pillaged Palestinian neighborhoods for several days, while Israeli soldiers stood around and watched. And Israeli soldiers fired flares into the air so that when the sun went down, the Lebanese could see their victims at night and could keep killing. And I read about Sabra and Shatila. I've spent hours reading about Sabra and Shatila. And then you read that and you think, oh my God, we're supporting the bad guys here. Like, I was told that Israel was great. What the fuck is this? Right? And then you read about Gaza and you read about Operation Cast Lead and how Israel used white phosphorus on civilians. And there was an Israeli soldier who said, yeah, I used white phosphorus because I thought it was cool to use white phosphorus on human beings. Thought it was cool, funny. Thought it was fun to use white phosphorus on human beings. Burn. You know what white phosphorus is? It's 1500 degrees Fahrenheit burning through your flesh. That's white phosphorus. And so you read about all this stuff and you're like, oh my God, what's going on here? And then you realize, wow, this is, oh my God, we've been lied to. So it is 100% in the realm of possibility that people are brainwashed into following something that is evil while thinking they're doing the right thing. So we should have mercy and understanding for these Israeli soldiers who are coming out and saying, we're doing wrong. This is evil. We got to give these people credit. Because if we start attacking those people, like, oh, F you, then what does that make us? It makes us into monsters. It makes us into people who are totally unreasonable and who are totally just stuck in a narrative and can't see the nuances of reality. So let's go back to this article. I don't want to sidetrack here, but I just wanted to give that explanation because when I bring up this subject, there's always one guy, at least one guy, who says, I don't believe any of this stuff. All these people are evil. Like, dude, we're human beings at the end of the day, and people are going to be brainwashed and hoodwinked into thinking they're doing the right thing when they're not. We see this in America all the time. In the liberal movements, in the conservative movements, young people are told, you're doing the right thing. Support abortion. It's women's rights. And then you actually see an abortion for the first time, and you see the little baby there all chopped up. You're like, what the fuck is this? And then you're told as a young man, oh, Iraq war is great. And then you hear about the Haditha massacre and how soldiers were mowing people down, and then they got away with it. You're like, what the hell? What's all this? Oh, we're gonna put a boot up your ass. It's the American way nonsense. I don't believe it. That's all nonsense. That's craziness, right? So we have to, like St. Paul. St. Paul murdered St. Stephen, one of the greatest saints in all of church history. St. Paul murdered him. And then St. Paul saw the light and realized he did wrong and thought, oh my goodness, I did wrong. So we have to have compassion here. We have to have understanding because we have been there. We have been lied to. In some way or another, we have been lied to. And we have come to grips with that. So anyway, let's go on. Now, let's read some more here. Israel's defense ministry says it has documented nearly 11,000 soldiers suffering from mental health injuries since the October 7th, 2023 Hamas attack that triggered the war in Gaza. That accounts for more than a third of the total 31,000 troops with such injuries in all of Israel's conflicts since its founding nearly 80 years ago. Guys, so in all of Israel's wars, since it was founded in the 1940s, there have been 31,000 cases, documented cases, of mentally ill soldiers. 11,000, at least nearly 11,000 of those soldiers are from the war in Gaza. The last one, the most recent one. So that's huge. That is absolutely huge. And it's amazing because this war was supposedly triggered by this massacre that Hamas committed. So you would think that, and this was the war. So think of it this way. Israel has had a whole bunch of wars in its history, right? War with Egypt, war with Syria, war with Jordan. And this is the most serious war that Israel has ever been in. It just in terms of the death count and in terms of just the destruction that it has caused, there's no war like this in Israel's history. And this war was caused by the biggest massacre of Jews that has ever taken place within the modern day state of Israel. So you would think out of all of the wars, this is the one that should have produced the least amount of mental illness, right? But it has produced the highest amount of mental illness. So is this war really righteous? I mean, you would think, right, that this was a war that was caused by this horrendous massacre. It was the worst killing of Jews since the Holocaust. That's what they always say. It was the worst massacre of Jews since the mid-20th century. So you would think out of all of the wars, this is the most righteous war. If you are to believe the narrative, if you are to believe the mainstream Israeli narrative, this is the most righteous war. And yet, for the most righteous war, it has caused the highest rate and the highest number of mentally ill soldiers. So, is it really righteous? Now, if you believe Douglas Murray, who wants to go hang out in downtown Tel Aviv and do God knows what because he's a servant of Sodom, then you would believe that this is a civilizational war between good and evil. If you are to believe Ben Shapiro, who wants to sell pillows or whatever the hell he's selling on his show, and he's worried about his media empire crashing down because it is currently crashing down, you would believe, well, this is a very, very just and necessary war, and it has to be done. It's an absolutely righteous war between civilization and Western civilization and Judeo-Christian civilization and totalitarianism and Islamism, Sharia law, and communism. But if you actually listen to soldiers who are coming back from this civilizational war, for some strange reason, you see a lot of them coming back crazy. And if you listen to them, they're saying, we did wrong. We did wrong. And it says here, a report published by Israel's parliament last month said an additional 279 soldiers tried to take their own lives from January 2024 through July of 2025, but survived. That's pretty big. Half a dozen soldiers who spoke to the AP, as well as psychologists who have treated fighters, said they lacked purpose. Wait, lacked purpose? I thought their purpose was to fight evil. I mean, if you're fighting evil, right? If you're a knight and the barbarians are at your border, they're at the gates, and the barbarians are going to come in and they're going to rape your women and butcher the men and kill the children and burn all the houses down. And the local bishop comes and he does this fiery, awe-inspiring speech and says, we must fight the demonic horde of Lucifer. Unsheathe your swords, men. I mean, you would unsheathe your sword and be like, ooh-ah, let's go. Let's fight these demons. You don't care. We're going to live. We're going to die. If we die, we're going to die fighting, and I'll see you in the afterlife. But you don't see that. You see a lot of depression. When you're fighting evil, you don't have a sense of purposelessness. Now, I'm going to give you guys an example from my own life, albeit this is anecdotal, and albeit this is nowhere near the scale of fighting in a war or taking part in a slaughterhouse, a human slaughterhouse. But I have fought evil in my own life. I've exposed certain evil people in the world of Roman Catholicism. I knew a sexual predator priest by the name of Monsignor Michael Yarbrough. He was a sexual predator. He asked me if I wanted to hang out with him somewhere. Oh, yeah, sorry. He asked me to hang out with him at his office. Well, I did research on him, and I found out that he invited a young man to his office in the past, and when the young man entered, he sexually assaulted the young man. So I knew, okay, this guy sees me as one of his victims. And I thought, I'm not going to go. Initially, I thought, okay, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to accept his invitation. But then I thought, you know what? I'm going to expose him so that he would never think about doing such a thing ever again. And I'm going to expose him to the entire public. And so I got a little GoPro camera, accepted his invitation, and he said, well, come to my office. I said, no, I don't want to go to your office. I would much rather that we meet in a public place. We met at this cafe. We spoke for a couple of hours, and then I got up and I said, before you leave, does the name Hector Escalante ring the bell? Hector Escalante was the name of his victim. And he got nervous, and he got up, and he ran away. It's all on film. It's on BitChute if you want to see it. I exposed him. And after he ran away, I said, I'm not done with this guy yet. I went to his church in the middle of Sunday Mass, and as he was giving communion out, I went in front of him and I filmed him. I didn't say anything to him. I just filmed him, and his whole face turned red, and he was very nervous. The ushers came in and said, you have to leave. And I said, why? This man is a predator. He's a predator, damn it. They said, we're going to call the police. I said, call the police for what? You are covering up for a predator. This man is a predator. And I saw some Boy Scouts walking around. This is on the video, by the way. And I said, children, watch out. This man is a predator. Good times. Did I feel bad? Nope. Did I feel purposelessness? Far from it. I felt like I had a sense of purpose. Did I feel dread and despair? No. I was like, fuck that guy. He's a piece of shit. So why are these soldiers feeling so purposeless? Why are they feeling sadness if they are truly fighting in a war between good and evil? Because their conscience is telling them the truth. You see, the body doesn't lie. when you have a sense of guilt, it leaves a feeling inside of you. And this feeling is very, very deep. Very deep. And that feeling is there for a reason. You know how Ben Shapiro tells everyone, facts don't care about your feelings. Forget about feelings. That is bullshit. In fact, I would say that your body can be more honest than you. I would say that your body can be more honest than your own brain. See, you can rationalize things all day. There's a word of wisdom that I heard years ago that really resonated with me, and that still sticks to my head to this day. And it's, who is your best lawyer, right? Who is your best defense lawyer? Your best lawyer is yourself, because you will make excuses for yourself all day. And if you want to make excuses for yourself, just leave it to your brain. Your brain will rationalize anything. Well, I did wrong, but that guy was asking for it, and I did do that, but that guy was asking for it, and you just can rationalize yourself. You can rationalize your own actions. You can justify your own wrongdoing as much as you want. That's if you follow your brain. But what do you really feel? Your body, your gut, your gut instinct, your intuition doesn't lie to you. That's real. So sometimes you can sit there and argue, and you can be a sophist, and you can make up all sorts of arguments and do word gymnastics and word Olympics all day to rationalize anything. But what do you really feel? And many times your feelings are more truthful than your own brain. Because these Israeli soldiers, that's all they hear is sophistry. Well, no, you did the right thing because, those Hamas guys, they're just hiding in the civilian areas, and so you had to do what you had to do. You killed those people, and yeah, you did shoot that 4-year-old in the head, and his brains blew out, and then you shot his dad, but, this is war, and these things happen. And by the way, that 4-year-old, he was going to grow up to be a terrorist anyway. So, you did the right thing. You prevented terrorism and you saved lives. Because that 4-year-old, he could have grown up and blew up a bus. He could have fired some rockets into Tel Aviv and could have killed people. So you actually saved lives. You are a hero for shooting little 4-year-old Myra in the head. And yes, there was a 4-year-old Palestinian girl named Myra, or Miara, who was shot in the head, or was shot and murdered by an Israeli sniper. But what do you really feel? Not so good. So it says here that these soldiers said that they lacked purpose, had difficulty concentrating, or having relationships. Why would you have difficulty having relationships if you've killed terrorists? I mean, don't these ladies think that you're some kind of a badass? Wouldn't it be easier to have relationships if you're the hero and if you're fighting in this righteous war and if you're like a knight in shining armor? And then it says here, and as the war dragged on, a sense of hopelessness set in. Really, hopelessness? You guys are winning. You guys have destroyed Gaza. You guys have totally flattened the region. You guys have defeated Hezbollah. You guys supposedly crippled Iran. You guys have defeated the Houthis, supposedly. You guys are winning on all fronts, supposedly. At least that's what you're told. Why would you be feeling hopeless? You should be screaming, "Am Israel Chai" all day. Flint said some also suffered from what he called moral injury. Now, moral injury is just psych speak for guilt. When psychiatrists talk about guilt, they will use this term, moral injury. I guess you could say it's sort of a Latinized way of saying guilt. I prefer guilt. Guilt is a much stronger word. And it says here, soldiers come back asking themselves, who are they after what they've seen and done? What kind of people are they, he said. Who am I? What do you mean? Why are you asking who you are? Why are you having this identity crisis if you're doing the right thing? When you do the right thing, you don't have an identity crisis. In fact, when you do the right thing, especially when you do something that's righteous and difficult, you actually have a much more grounded sense of yourself. Like, look back in your own life and think of a time when you've done something that was good and difficult, right? You stood up to someone, you confessed what you did wrong, right? All these things take a certain degree of mental strength. And when you did those things, you had a much stronger sense of self. You had a much stronger sense of identity. So why would you have a sense of an identity crisis if you're doing the right thing? The answer is very simple. It's because you're not doing the right thing. What an evil bitch Laura Loomer is. She's an evil cunt. There were these kids who came from Gaza because they have serious medical needs, and they were trying to get to America. And oh my God, I was so pissed reading this. Laura Loomer is like, I don't want these terrorists in my country. Terrorists. They're terrorists. It's like, dude, they're kids who need mechanical arms. They're missing limbs. You evil cunt. And she goes, I don't want terrorists. So then America comes along and they say, well, we blocked these kids from entering America. And Laura Loomer is like, I'm celebrating right now. You're celebrating because kids who need serious medical attention are not going to get serious medical attention? Really? Laura Loomer, I swear to you, she is an evil, evil, sinister cunt of the first class. Sinister bitch. I would love to debate her. I would love to debate Laura Loomer. I would love to debate that bitch. Israeli society is an Asylum. It is. Yeah, it's full of crazy people. Now it's going to get even worse. And you have all these soldiers who are super angry at the government because they were lied to. So it's a weird situation with Israel. You have this rising tension, this rise in extremism. You have this ascending extremist political climate. You have the rise of the Third Temple cult, which wants a third temple and is getting closer and closer to the fruition of their dreams, which is to have a third temple. They actually have a team of Kohanim priests or Levites ready to go. They've done mock animal sacrifice rituals. And you have lunatics who are really planning to build a third temple. And their movement is rising tremendously. It is rising a lot. And then on the other side, you have soldiers who are coming back from Gaza, or they have come back from Gaza. They are very angry at the government because they've been lied to. They have seen atrocities. They've seen their fellow soldiers being killed. They are extremely angry at the Netanyahu government because the Netanyahu government wanted to prolong this war for as long as possible in order to preserve Netanyahu's power and to prevent Netanyahu from actually going through his corruption trial, because the Israeli government, the Likud, and their ilk have been using the war as a way to push Netanyahu's criminal trial to the back burner and to really prevent it from happening. And so these Israeli soldiers are saying, okay, you prolonged this war, which you prolonged this war, you pushed us to fight in this war, a lot of soldiers have been killed, we've killed civilians, we've done atrocities in your name, and you don't give a damn. And here you are appeasing these Jewish fanatics and these Third Temple cultists, and you don't even give a damn about us, the soldiers who have lost their minds. And so you could totally see a serious political clash between the people who are resentful against the right wing and the right-wingers who want to see Jewish supremacy and they want to see a third temple. And they're ultra-nationalists. And this political clash could actually escalate into a real-life civil war where these people are killing each other. I could totally see that happening. Because the last time Israel had a temple, the Jews were butchering each other. And you had fanatic Jews butchering moderate Jews, and they were butchering Jews who didn't agree with their fanaticism and who did not want a war with the Roman Empire. And that could totally happen again. And remember, Israel's biggest existential threat outside of itself is Turkey. It's not Iran. And Turkey is technically Anatolia. And Anatolia used to be a major part of the Roman Empire, and it eventually became the headquarters for the Roman Empire. We're talking about Constantinople, which is in Turkey, Anatolia. And so Anatolia, Turkey, wants to really crush Israel. And the Israelis are trying their best to sabotage and to undermine Turkey's agenda to be the supreme power in the Middle East. And they're fighting over who's going to control Syria. They're fighting over who's going to be the major power in Syria. So inevitably, there's going to be a clash between Israel, historically known as Judea, and Turkey, historically known as Anatolia, which used to be the headquarters for the Roman Empire. So it looks like there's going to be another Roman-Judean war. It's not going to be exactly like the war that happened 2,000 or so years ago, or 40 or so years ago after the crucifixion. But history does not repeat itself exactly. It rhymes. It rhymes. And it looks like we will be hearing the symphony of history yet again. And just as there was a Jewish civil war in the midst of the war between the Roman Empire and the Judeans, in the future, it looks like there's going to be a civil war between the Jews in the midst of a conflict with Anatolia, which used to be the headquarters for the Roman Empire. History does not repeat itself exactly, but it sure as hell rhymes. So it says here, this is an article that was published by Haaretz recently, and it says here, an Israeli drone operator could not bear his role in the Gaza war. Moral injury made him take his own life. So there was a drone operator whose job it was to fly drones that would be used to slaughter thousands of people. And this drone operator became so guilt-ridden that he eventually took his own life. And it says here, the horrors of the war and all the killing were hard for him. It oppressed him. I saw him gradually wilt and lose it. So again, okay, you're a drone operator. Okay, you're responsible for flying the drones that are used to slaughter thousands of people. But according to the Hasbarist and all the pro-Israel people and all the pro-Israel mouthpieces, you should feel very proud of yourself. You should feel amazing. Who's that guy that's always on the Piers Morgan show? What's his name? Shabbos Kestelbaum? Or whatever his name is? Well, according to Shabbos Kestelbaum, however you say his name, this guy should be absolutely proud of himself. He should be absolutely proud of himself. But why did he take his own life? Why did he gradually wilt and lose it, to quote his friend here? It's because he wasn't doing the right thing. He was told he was doing the right thing, and he thought he was doing the right thing initially, but then reality sunk in. And suicide is horrible. Suicide is terrible. And if these people could know that their Messiah is Jesus Christ, and their Messiah came a long time ago and died for them, they wouldn't have this despair. They wouldn't have this initial urge to fight in such wars in the first place. And I believe that a lot of what happens in Israel is the Judas effect. You see, in the gospel, you have Judas and you have Peter. They both betrayed Christ in their own way. If you read the story and if you think about it, it's true. Peter and Judas both betrayed Christ in their own way. Judas betrayed Christ by telling the temple authorities of Christ's whereabouts for some pieces of silver. And Peter betrayed Christ by disowning him 3 times in a row. They both betrayed him. Peter felt a sense of guilt. Judas also felt a sense of guilt. But you see, because Judas rejected his Messiah, despair took over him. And he eventually treaded upon a road of self-destruction. Peter had a sense of guilt, but because he accepted Christ as the Messiah, he embraced forgiveness. And I think what these soldiers really need is their Messiah. If they had Jesus as their Messiah in the first place, they wouldn't be following these wars. They would know that this war is evil. And if they understood after the war who their Messiah is, they would understand that their country is evil because it has rejected the Messiah. And they would be like St. Peter. This source says the senior officer was in charge of drone takeoffs and landings, not the attacks. But he saw everything, the result of every takeoff. I realized that it bothered him, that his participation was hard for him, the source adds. Most people here might manage to repress it, but for him, apparently the wall broke. It did not happen all at once, but slowly but surely. It's true, he says, that the drone operators' lives are not in danger, but their ability to take lives is no less complicated. Sometimes we have to play God and decide who will live and who will die. So they get to play God. Now we can imagine a lot of these soldiers enjoying this. We can imagine a lot of these soldiers loving to be in this position of the arbiter of who lives and who dies. Well, I have my hands on a drone. I have my hands on the remote. I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to blow these people up, and I'm going to enjoy it. And I think this is the case for the majority of Israeli soldiers who participate in this slaughter. But a minority of soldiers come back and they say, oh my God, what have I done? I've done evil. What the hell is wrong with me? And so playing God is not exactly what they thought it would be. They realized that it just left them empty. You murdered people. You murdered people who had their whole lives ahead of them. You murdered children who have only lived a fraction of their lives. You murdered kids who had an entire lifetime ahead of them. You took that away from them. You cut them off. You did damage that you cannot reverse. Most of these soldiers feel very proud of this, but some, because these people have souls, some feel guilty. And I think we have to be understanding. I think we have to be compassionate with these people because they are at least having guilt. And they are coming to grips with the reality that they were lied to and they were hoodwinked into doing evil. And the reality of their actions have sunk in their brains. And they are feeling it in their consciousness. And this guy says, we're responsible for the deaths of thousands of people, some of them innocent. They are operators who have to return home knowing that they killed children, that they hit our soldiers by mistake. That's likely to leave a scar that won't heal. I have no doubt about that. Another officer, also a drone operator, mentions a conversation with the senior officer a few weeks before he ended his life. He said that we had to stop this. So this operator committed suicide. Tragic. Very tragic. I don't want to make light of suicide. I don't want to sit there and say, oh yeah, who cares? No. It's very tragic what's happening here. Because these people were lied to. And they were left to live in their guilt. And abandoned. Because as they came to realize, their government simply used them. And then as they were feeling guilty, they were abandoned. And the government doesn't care about them. Just like when Judas betrayed Christ and he realized he did wrong. And he went to the high priest And he said, I have taken blood money. And he took the coins. He said, I have taken blood money. And the priest said, you got your money. Now go. Just like the government tells these soldiers, well, you did what we wanted you to do. Now go, piss off. And Judas threw the coins at them. Why? Because money meant nothing at that point. It's like what Jesus says. If you gain the entire world but lose your soul, it's not worth it. If you gain the entire world but lose your soul, it is not worth it. These soldiers were promised that they were fighting a righteous cause. They were told that they were fighting a righteous cause, that they were doing the right thing, that they were fighting for a greater Israel, that they were fighting for a safer Israel. And they come back empty because, yeah, they did what they thought was the right thing. But when reality sunk in, just as Judas realized he did evil, these people realized they did evil. And Israel is doing evil because it has not accepted Christ as their Messiah. And because they have not accepted Christ as their Messiah, they tread the path of Judas, which is self-destruction. And I'm not saying that I like it. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm just giving you my observation. And it's a sad and tragic observation. And so this drone operator who committed suicide, he said, according to a friend of his, according to someone who knew him, that we had to stop this, that we had to stop the war, that it would have consequences that we did not understand yet. The officer says, he said that it haunted him. He mentioned dead children. He said he feared for the fate of the hostages, that we were endangering them. Reality sunk in. It says here, we have to remember that many drone operators were exposed to the killing of civilians. Now, this is coming from a senior official in the medical corps. We have to remember that many drone operators were exposed to the killings of civilians, suffered operational failures, and dealt with immense pressure, and didn't take their own lives. He says, adding that in most cases, suicide stems from a combination of factors, not just one. Experts who have read the accounts collected by Haaretz, including officers in the Israel Defense Forces mental health systems, believe they're hearing about a person who suffered a so-called moral injury. What is moral injury? Guilt. That's moral injury. But Douglas Murray says it's a civilizational war. Tommy Robinson says it's a just war. It's a righteous war between civilization and barbarism. Brigitte Gabriel says that we should be supporting Israel because we're fighting against barbarism. Israel is fighting the barbarians. And the Hasbrists, all these Iranian diaspora Hasbrists, are saying, we have to support Israel. I'm from Iran. I support the Shah of Iran. Down with the regime of Ayatollah Khomeini. I voted for Trump. Support Netanyahu. And all of the South Korean evangelicals who say, Yeshua love you. God bless Israel. God bless Israel. Who love it when Jewish fanatics spit on them. And they say, I got the Jewish spit. It's good. And you have that bastard, that sycophant, that servant of Israel, what's his name? Brandon Tatum, talking to Netanyahu saying, Israel's a great country, man. The last time we was there, we only got spat on just once. Just spat on just once. And then you have that evil bastard, what's his name? Jordan Peterson, being a sycophant to Netanyahu. According to all these evil people, these snakes, it's a righteous war. But then when I actually hear the accounts of Israeli soldiers, they're not talking like Brandon Tatum, who says Israel has the right to starve Palestinians to death. They're not talking like Ben Shapiro. They're not talking like Douglas Murray. They're not talking like Joshua Hammer. They're not talking like Emily Austin. They're not talking like all the rest of these snakes. They're saying, oh my God, I feel so empty inside. what have I done? They are ready to go into a monastery and fast and go through penance. That's what they're ready to do. They're not ready for Emily Austin to pour praise on them and to glaze them. They feel dirty inside because they feel guilt. That's what it is. Mark Levine. Yeah, another one. Mark Levine. Yeah, according to Mark Levine, this is it's a war between civilization and barbarism. That's what this is. And on the one hand, we have the Islamo-fascist Nazis, and on the other hand, we have the on the other hand, we have the forces of Judeo-Christianity. These Israeli soldiers are not feeling Judeo-Christianity. They're not feeling civilizational. They feel like they need to go through penance. Their soul is aching for penance. That's what their soul is longing for. But instead of giving them their Messiah, Mark Levine wants to give them praise and tell them that they're a good boy. It's just sickening. And they are abandoned by their government. They're abandoned by Netanyahu. They're abandoned by all these Israeli politicians who we are told by the Levinites, the Levites. I think we should call them Mark Levi. The Levites, we're told by the Levites that, well, they did the right thing. And who cares if they're feeling guilty? Who gives a damn if they're feeling guilty? And amazingly, Josh Hammer, who is a paid... He's an agent for Israel. I don't know who pays him or whatever. I don't want to get into accusations that I don't want to say things that I don't have details to back up. But he's an agent for Israel. That I can be assured of. But Joshua Hammer says that Haaretz is left-wing scum. He said something like that, right? That it's left-wing scum, left-wing trash, or something like that. Now, the newspaper that I'm reading right now is Haaretz. And Haaretz has interviewed a whole bunch of Israeli soldiers, and this is what they're telling Haaretz. And Joshua Hammer debated Dave Smith at a TPUSA meeting, which was organized by Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was told, do not bring Dave Smith to debate Josh Hammer. And Charlie Kirk gave those people the middle finger and said, no, we're doing this. Charlie Kirk organized the debate against the interest of his pro-Israel donors. They had the debate, and Dave Smith said, Haaretz recently published an article showing quotes, statements from IDF soldiers in which they are saying that they were told to open fire on civilians. They were ordered by their superior officers to open fire on civilians. Josh Hammer interrupts Dave Smith and says, Haaretz is a bunch of left-wing trash. It's just left-wing trash. Left-wing scum. And Dave Smith says, oh, are the soldiers who recounted that they were ordered to fire on civilians also left-wing scum, Mr. Hammer? And do you know what Hammer said? Probably.
There was just a major report a couple weeks ago in Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper, where they had a bunch of IDF soldiers. They actually had one who went on record who was saying that they were ordered to shoot at crowds of people who were going into
All right, more libel, left-wing filth, by the way.
Josh, I let you talk. Let's please let Dave make his case.
Well, is the IDF soldier who went on the record also filth?
Probably.
Okay. All right, there you go. So if there, see, you're, whatever. That's when you'll criticize the IDF.
Probably. So according to these people, the Hasbarists, the pro-Israel agents, the agents of the synagogue of Satan, the soldiers who are in despair right now, who are feeling guilt and purposelessness, and they're feeling regret, and they were going through suicidal ideation because of the evils that they were told were good, the evils that they did when they were being told that those were good things that they did. According to these people, these soldiers who have regrets about murdering civilians are left-wing scum. That's how much they care about the suffering of these soldiers. And you understand why. Now you understand why these soldiers have so much resentment against the government. This is why I say it is very likely that Israel is going to have a civil war because of stuff like this. Now, what does this tell us about the pro-Israel cause? What it tells us is that the pro-Israel cause is in the business of praising murderers. The pro-Israel cause is in the business of praising mass murderers. Only mass murderers can be heroes. The mass murderers are the heroes. The Israeli soldiers who were ordered to open fire on civilians and followed orders and are proud about it are the heroes who deserve praise. But the soldiers who have come back to say, I was ordered to open fire on civilians and I followed those orders and now I feel empty and I feel guilt-ridden. According to Mark Levine and Josh Hammer, we are not to praise these soldiers. According to Josh Hammer, these soldiers are probably left-wing scum. Do you see how evil these people are? Now, they're all terrified about Nick Fuentes. Like, oh, well, the Nazis are rising up. And you know what? They're right. The Nazis are rising up. They are. Listen, you can disagree with me all you want. It's the facts. Nazism is making a comeback. Hitlerism is making a comeback. But here's the thing. Josh Hammer and Mark Levine and the whole gang, the whole pro-Israel gang, they're right when they say Nazism is rising up. But they need to look in the mirror because they themselves are Nazis. They themselves are Nazis, and their Nazism, their Jewish Nazism, is what's accelerating the revival of Hitlerism. Because as they support mass murder and give arguments and sophistry for genocide, people are saying, look at these pro-Israel acolytes praising mass murder. Maybe Hitler was right. That's what they're saying. I'm not saying it's a good thing. Don't damn me, YouTube. I'm just observing reality for what it is. They are accelerating the rise of Nazism, because they themselves are Nazis. They are promoting their own form of, they are promoting Jewish supremacism. So Mark Levine says, well, we have the Nazis, and Ben Shapiro comes out and he says no to Nazism, no to the racists, no to the far right. Okay, I agree. No to these people. I don't like them. I don't like the Nazis. I don't like the whatever they call them, the Groypers and all these people. I don't like them. I don't. My position is, fuck Israel. And I look at these far-right Nazi types and I say, fuck you too. That's my position. I won't follow any Nazi, be he a Jewish Nazi or be he one of these Hitler fanboys. I won't follow them because both paths, if you tread upon either one of them, both paths lead to murder and destruction. I choose the path of Christ. Did Christ follow the Pharisees? Nope. Did he follow the Sadducees? Nope. Did he follow the Zealots? Nope. Did he follow the pagans? Nope. He didn't try. He didn't have to. He's God. But Christ was on the path of righteousness. So I tried to follow the path of Christ. Christ is king, as the young men like to say. Right? Christ is king. And I love that saying. I love that term. Christ is king. I love it. It feels endearing. It feels amazing. I love it. I love that saying. Christ is king. And that's the path that I want to try to take as best as I can with my own fleshy, weak nature. But when you see Mark Levine coming along and he's saying, "Oh, well, we go the rise of this far right racism," it's like, excuse me, Mark, you literally back in a racist, genocidal, murderous Israeli regime. And then you have Ben Shapiro saying, well, it's this far-right Nazi movement is rising up. Yeah, you're right. It is rising up. And we should be worried about that. Absolutely. But I'm sorry, Mr. Shapiro. Didn't you say years ago that Jews build and innovate and Arabs only know how to destroy and live in shit? Didn't you say something to the likes of that? So you contributed to this. you contributed to this monster. Didn't Fuentes say that he was radicalized after listening to Mark Levine? They contributed to this. Experts who have read the accounts collected by Haaretz, including officers in the Israel Defense Forces mental health system, believe they're hearing about a person who suffered a so-called moral injury. Moral injury is just guilt. When a soldier is aware of the gap between his ethics code and his conduct, or a mistake that blatantly violates that code, he experiences a dissonance and internal conflict that can be extremely intense and tear him up inside, says Professor Zahava Solomon. In other words, when you do something bad that's against your own conscience, your conscience lets you know, and it's impossible to defeat your own conscience. So it says here, when soldiers feel that their actions are unforgivable, they may have a hard time finding a way to reconcile this with themselves and others. So this is what these IDF guys are going through. Studies published in the United States in the past 2 decades on drone operators who led attacks in Afghanistan, Yemen, and Pakistan showed that many of them reported serious psychological symptoms because they're just playing with the joystick. They're moving the drone around, and the guy says, okay, kill these people. And you pull the trigger, and you kill them. And you end up killing innocent people. You end up killing just normal folks. Now, a lot of American soldiers didn't really give a damn. There is that infamous video that got leaked out by WikiLeaks. It was footage from a drone, I remember. You can go watch it on YouTube. It's pretty graphic. And you see some Iraqi guys just standing around, minding their own business. And this drone is looking at them, and you can hear these American operators talking amongst themselves, and one of them is saying, oh, please have a gun, please have a gun, please have a gun, because they wanted to murder those people. They were thirsty for blood, and they sounded like the types of psychopaths that play Call of Duty, and they're just playing Call of Duty. In their minds, it's like they're playing a video game, but they think it's even better than a video game because they're actually murdering people. And one of the Iraqi guys was holding a camera. And one of the drone guys says, he's got a gun. He's got a gun. It was a camera. And they're mowing these people down, slaughtering them. Then some good Samaritan is driving his car, drives near the bodies. This guy gets out of his car, or a number of people get out of this van. They're trying to help the people that have been shot. They're trying to see, oh my God, what happened? Can we help these people? Is anyone still alive? They get mowed down. I mean, mass murder at a systematic level. And these American drone operators are, so much fun. I hope this guy has a gun. Oh, he's got a camera. Let's murder them. Some good Samaritans come to help those people. Kill those people. And I'm going to be very, very blunt with you guys. I don't celebrate Veterans Day. I don't. I'm going to be even more blunt with you guys. I don't give a rat's ass about Veterans Day. Don't give a shit about Veterans Day. I don't give a fat flying fuck about Veterans Day. Oh, the only thing I like about Veterans Day is, wait, do we get a day off? That's all I care about. I don't give a shit about Veterans Day. Because we shouldn't be praising veterans. Oh, the veterans, oh, thank you for your service. We should be helping the veterans who are suffering mental illness because they have guilt for the crimes they've done. We shouldn't be celebrating the Iraq War. Veterans Day. They fought for their country. No, they didn't. They fought for some Zionist scumbags. They fought for Lockheed Martin. They fought for Boeing. They fought for Dick Cheney, who sat in the board of Lockheed Martin when the Iraq War started. That's who they fought for. They fought for Bruce Jackson, who was running Lockheed Martin for years. That's who they fought for. And if the Iraq War was so righteous, why did so many Iraq War veterans come back crazy? Because the war wasn't righteous. And then you read about the Haditha massacres, where soldiers were mowing down civilians, elderly people, children. They didn't give a shit. Killing people, slaughtering people. And do you know what happened? Oh, the murderers were let go. Nothing happened to them. And then you read about American soldiers shooting civilians in Afghanistan, and they were also let go. Nothing happened to them. Trump gave the guy a pardon. He gave the murderers a pardon. Oh, look at that. But we're supposed to celebrate Veterans Day. Fuck that. I don't give a shit about Veterans Day. They need to call it Reconciliation Day. They need to call it Penance Day, where we ask for forgiveness for the crimes that we have done. Not Veterans Day, where we walk up to some soldier who just got out of fucking ROTC in high school, and he's on an airplane flying to Virginia somewhere. Oh, thank you for your service. Bullshit. Bullshit. And all the soldiers who get told, thank you for your service, guess what? They think that you're also a tool. They do. They don't like hearing it because they know it's bullshit. Thank you for your service. What service? I just got out of ROTC. I just got out of training in high school to run 5 miles for the Marine Corps, or however many miles they make you run in boot camp or whatever. It's bullshit. Fighting for the country. You're not fighting for your country. You're fighting for some fat cats over there. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. There's a reason why the Iran war didn't happen. There is a reason why we didn't do an Iraq-style war in Iran yet. You know why? It's because we realized that the Iraq war was immoral, and it was evil, and it was destructive, and it was wrong. And we don't want to do that again. So why are we celebrating Veterans Day? We should be helping the veterans who are ridden with guilt for what happened. And I remember many years ago, I was in Killeen, Texas, which if you don't know about Killeen, Texas, I'll just put it to you this way. If Texas was an anatomy, Killeen would be the asshole. Killeen, Texas is the biggest military city in the world. All right, it is a city. It is a ginormous army base. That's what Killeen is. It's a city where soldiers live. And it just so happens that the city where all these soldiers live, right? It just so happens that the biggest military city in the world is also a crime-infested hellhole. Why is it a crime-infested hellhole? If the American military is so righteous, so filled with noble, upstanding citizens, why is the biggest military city in the country so filled with crime and dysfunction and violence? Why? I've been to Killeen. Let me tell you, you can feel the demons in that city. You can feel them. You literally feel the demons. It's a demonic city. Full of crime, Chinese buffets everywhere. You walk into a Chinese buffet, it's all just a bunch of grease. It's just a chicken smothered in grease and MSG. They call it Chinese food. It tastes good, don't get me wrong, but this shit ain't good for you. You know, all you can eat Chinese restaurants everywhere because all these white dudes married Asian chicks and they came back to America. So like Okinawan, Chinese, Vietnamese restaurants everywhere. Filled with crime, filled with murder, filled with all sorts of corruption. It's a shithole. It's a complete shithole. And I was in Killeen, and I met this veteran dude. I was hanging out with this army veteran. And he told me, he said, listen, these young guys who are working the drones, he goes, it's just a video game to them. They pull the trigger. They kill people. He says they think it's fun. Now, he wasn't saying this because he liked it. He was saying this because he didn't like it. He told me. He said it's all just a video game to them. They're so desensitized to killing. They don't care. That's what he told me. They've lost their souls. So Israel's going through the same thing. So this Israeli soldier tells Haaretz, at first, nothing bothered me. He didn't feel bothered about what he was doing. He didn't feel bothered about the fact that he was drone striking people. Then he goes on to say, I was focused on the mission. With all my heart, I believed in what we were doing. So he believed the lie. He got hoodwinked. I can't blame him for that because he's a young man and it's very easy for a government to manipulate young men, especially when they're filled with idealism and they think they're fighting for, Eretz Israel and all this stuff. They're brainwashed. These people are brainwashed from a young age to think that Israel is the chosen nation of God and it's something special and we're fighting for righteousness and all this stuff and it's Israel. You have to understand, Israel is not just a country. Israel is a cult. These people are brainwashed. They're totally brainwashed. So he thought he was doing the right thing, just like Germans in the Wehrmacht they thought they were doing the right thing. And then a lot of them realized that the whole thing was bullshit and evil and they were disillusioned. So he goes on to say, with all my heart, I believed in what we were doing. But that conviction weakened. So he became disillusioned. He began to take the red pill. Reality began to sink in. I felt that I aged during this war, but I'm a different person. He says the turning point came near the Netzarim corridor. Ooh, that's where the Israelis had their death squads. Go read about the Netzarim corridor and what the Israelis were doing in the Netzarim corridor. They literally made the whole corridor into a kill zone. And they had death squads, and they were mowing people down for fun. And as time goes on, we're going to get more information about what happened in the Netzarim corridor. We're going to get more details about what happened in the Netzarim corridor. And I'm telling you right now, the reality is going to be a lot worse than how they're presenting it. So he said that his turning point took place when he was at the Netzarim corridor in the central Gaza Strip. He says, quote, a brigade commander asked me to fire at two figures who were approaching from the south. So I launched a drone at them, he says. It turned out that it was just two kids. Maybe they were looking for food. Maybe they were lost. Who knows? So he was told, kill those people. They're terrorists. Turned out they were children. Turned out they were children. So now this guy has to live haunted with his crimes for the rest of his life. And according to Josh Hammer, he's left-wing scum. According to Ben Shapiro, we shouldn't believe this guy. According to Douglas Murray, we shouldn't believe this guy. We should totally disregard everything he says and consider him to be not worthy of listening to, at least. We should only listen to the soldiers who are heartless, soulless members of the cult of Israel. Do you see what monsters Ben Shapiro and the pro-Israel industry has made? They have made monsters, and they continue to try to make monsters out of us. They continue to try to make us desensitized to the crimes of Israel. They want us to think this is a good thing. And the Nazis are rising up, and the Nazis are trying to convince us that we should consider the crimes of the Nazi Empire to be good things that happened, because the Nazis were fighting Bolshevism. And Ben Shapiro is saying, look, the Nazis are rising. They're telling us to praise Hitler. We should be worried. And he's right. I don't want to disregard what Ben Shapiro says here. He's right. But Ben, you've been doing the same thing for years. You've been telling people to disregard the facts about the crimes of Israel. And you always tell people facts don't care about feelings, but you should follow that saying of yours. You coined that phrase, facts don't care about your feelings, but yet you don't follow it when it comes to Israel. When it comes to Israel, your bias is more important than the truth. And you don't want people to follow facts. You see, when people say things like facts don't care about your feelings, what they're really trying to do is make you callous. What they're really trying to do is to get you to accept some sort of evil. And when you object, they say, facts don't care about your feelings. What they're trying to do is to get you to sear your conscience and to no longer fight against your conscience. Because my conscience speaks to me through my what? My emotions. And my emotions, when I hear about a 4-year-old Gazan child being shot by a sniper, when I hear about children being mowed down, my conscience speaks to me and says, you should not support this. And my conscience tells me that through my what? My gut instinct, my intuition, which is expressed through what? Emotions, internal emotions. Ben Shapiro says I should ignore that. Ben Shapiro wants me to be callous. So when anyone tells me facts don't care about your feelings, just keep in mind that what they really are trying to do is to get you to accept their movement And when you see that their movement is doing crimes, they want you to sear your conscience. That's what that means. And I've known that ever since I heard it. Ever since I heard that evil line, I've always known what it meant. They want us to accept something evil. And when our conscience tells us don't accept this, they want us to ignore our conscience. Because emotions are spoken to us through our what? Our conscience, our souls. Without the soul, you have no emotions, you have nothing, you have no conscience, you're a fucking robot. But when we have our souls, when we have our conscience intact, we feel something. I was told my whole life to be pro-Israel, and then I read about the Southern Shatila massacre. I see what the settlers do. I see a video of settlers raiding a Palestinian farm, taking a baby lamb. Yes, you can watch this on video. I don't encourage you to do it because it's evil, and it's graphic, and it's cruel. But a settler slaughters a baby lamb, kills a baby lamb. You see the little baby lamb twitching like that, picks up the baby lamb's mother, slams the baby's mother, the baby lamb's mother on the ground, kills the mother. And then you read a story today. Israeli soldiers fired tear gas at Palestinians as they were harvesting olives. The tear gas killed the child. The child inhaled the tear gas. Child went into a coma and died. My conscience says something's wrong here. Something's wrong with this whole movement. But according to Ben Shapiro, I need to ignore my emotions. So when they say facts don't care about your feelings, what they really mean to say is ignore your conscience when it sees the evil reality that lies before you. In fact, when he says facts don't care about your feelings, what he really is saying is the opposite of what he's saying. Because I see the facts and my feelings conform with the facts. And he's telling me to ignore the facts. He's telling me to sear my conscience. I'll read on. So this guy murdered 2 kids, and now he has to live with that. And it says here, at first he didn't think about this mistake too much. He tried to ignore it. But as the days went by, I realized that it was oppressing me. His conscience was speaking to him. That conscience is given to you by God. Remember what St. Paul says, the law is written in our hearts. There's a law that's written in our hearts because we're made in the image of God. So we have God's law inside of us, even if we're not Christians, even if we don't know Jesus, even if we have not accepted Christ, we still have this law within us where we know the difference between right and wrong. And so now his conscience, at first his conscience was just whispering into his ear, but then his conscience began to scream at him. It was oppressing me, he says, that occasionally I would remember and have a feeling of shame, of disgust, he says. A few weeks later, he asked to be discharged. He told his commanders that he was worn out, but he knew that this wasn't the whole truth. I was sure that after returning to civilian life, the situation would improve, but it only got worse, he says. So he left the war, he got back into civilian life, and then reality began to sink deeper. I couldn't forget about it. I never took part in an attack whose purpose was revenge. It was always cases where I thought they were endangering the forces. Still, it's hard for me to bear. It's burning me up inside. These people need their Messiah. Remember what Christ said to the Jew first. Christ came to the Jews to be their Messiah. They rejected him. But if these people had their Messiah, they would know who to go to. And they would know that the whole thing is evil. They would know that those fanatics who are running the government in Israel are evil. They would know that this whole third temple cult is evil. They would recognize the synagogue of Satan. And they would see the synagogue of Satan, the agenda of the synagogue of Satan, in the Gaza war. But they got hoodwinked. Why did they get hoodwinked? Because they don't have their Messiah. Mashiach, as they say. I didn't join the army to harm innocent people. It's hard for me to live with the feeling that that's what I did. I had thoughts of ending it all, of killing myself, but I fight them mainly for the sake of my family. It's only for them that I'm still alive. It says here, some patients, however, are in a far more advanced stage. I was discharged recently after hundreds of days of reserve duty, and I can attest that I'm simply a different person, another drone operator says. When I was in the reserves, I tried not to open the news, not to see pictures from Gaza. Hold on! This is a righteous war, according to Shapiro and Douglas Murray and Josh Hammer and Emily Austin and all the rest of them. This is a just war, right? Why don't you want to see the pictures or the videos from Gaza? Why? Why didn't you want to see them? Why didn't you want to see the children? Why didn't you want to see a video of a child picking up the body parts of his mother? Why didn't you want to see that? If you're fighting this righteous war, why don't you want to look at the reality? Because you knew it wasn't righteous. That's why. You knew. Believe me, I went through something like this. I wasn't a soldier. Obviously, I didn't take part in this, but I was told my whole life to be pro-Israel. 2023, I was critical of Israel, but I still had a little bit. It takes time for this stuff to get purged out, guys. It's like a demon. I had a little bit of that pro-Israel stuff in me in 2023. A little bit. You can see it in some of my videos from October of 2023. And I remember seeing videos from Gaza. I've talked about this before. I remember seeing videos from Gaza. And a part of me was like, this is war, right? I mean, October the 7th happened, so this is war. But another part of me was saying, Ted, like, you know this is bad. You know this is wrong. And I was trying to suppress that. I was trying to suppress that voice. I was trying to suppress the voice of my conscience. And I remember doing a video called, it was something like, I don't give a damn about Gaza, or to hell with Gaza, or something like that. And I was like, I don't care. I don't care about the videos of seeing dead kids because it's war and this and that. I totally, like, I don't know what the fuck was wrong with me, in all honesty. I don't know what the fuck was in me for me to say that, in all honesty. I to this day, I feel bad about it. Like, I deleted that video. I was so ashamed of it. Like, I deleted it. I'm like, fuck this, delete the video. I don't want people to even see me saying those things. And I did a follow-up video later on saying why I removed it and all that. But it's like a demon. It's like a demon influences you. And I just kind of went down that Brandon Tatum road, and I felt terrible. And even after the video was uploaded, I felt kind of icky. Like, I felt icky. And I felt dirty. And I'm just done with all that shit. Completely done with it. Just completely. So this guy says that he didn't want to see pictures from Gaza, and he says he didn't want to think about the hostages, only to focus on the mission. I was afraid that all these distractions would harm my ability to function. To some extent, this strategy worked while he was in uniform, but when he was discharged, everything changed because reality began to sink in. Suddenly, I remembered a serious incident in the northern strip in which I hesitated before attacking, and terrorists emerged from a tunnel and fired a rocket-propelled grenade at soldiers. 2 of them were killed. Only after my discharge did I have the courage to look up their names, and when I saw their faces, that finished me. I read the eulogies and didn't stop crying. And there were other triggers. I went into Telegram and saw lots of pictures of bodies of Palestinians. Suddenly it hit me that what I was a part of, all that crap. He says it hit me that I was a part of all that crap. That there are bodies with my name on them. This is like when Judas got the coins and he said, I have accepted money with blood on it. I have accepted money with innocent blood on it. That's what these people are going through, the Judas effect. People will say that what I did had to be done. That's what Douglas Murray would tell this guy. That's what Josh Hammer would tell him. That's what Ben Shapiro would tell him. That what you did had to be done. And that I didn't intend to harm innocent people. Still, I feel pain that's hard to describe in words. I'm angry at myself. Sometimes I don't even know why. It's insulting. I feel betrayed, and despite what people think, the pain is only growing now that we're at the end of the war, because it feels like everybody is carrying on with their lives. They're all euphoric that the hostages have returned and it's over, and I'm still in the same place with my thoughts, with my guilt feelings. I feel that everything is closing in on me, alone, isolated. When the intensity, and so this is a doctor speaking here. When the intensity of the urgency and vengefulness and the desire to feel that you're protecting the country suddenly drop, you look back and ask yourself, what have I done? And it's like that, it's like that scene from The Prince of Egypt. I don't know if you guys have seen that film, but it's a brilliant cartoon movie, beautifully done cartoon movie about Moses and the Exodus. And there's a scene where Moses is this prince of Egypt. He's the son of Pharaoh. And he's looking at these hieroglyphs, and he sees on the hieroglyphs an account of the slaughter of the Jewish or the Hebrew firstborn babies, the male firstborn babies, and he sees the little babies in the hieroglyphs being thrown into the Nile River, and the crocodiles are eating them, and he's seeing all this horror, and this music is playing in the back. This very dark music is playing in the back, and he's running, and he's in this horrific internal moral conflict with his own conscience, and he doesn't know what to do, and he feels despair, and he feels awful, and then he gets on the ground, and his father, the Pharaoh, comes to him and says, "Oh, Moses, they were only slaves." And he gets up and he runs away. He runs. It's a beautiful scene. It's a beautiful scene that illustrates coming to grips with reality, coming to grips of the evil that your side has done. And when you come to grips with the reality of the evils that your side has done, it's horrific because you have to come to terms with that. But at the same time, there's a sense of liberation in terms of, in the sense that you have this feeling of liberation, that you can now speak, that your conscience can now speak, because for years you were suppressing your conscience. You may not have known it at the time, but you were suppressing your conscience because deep down you knew there was something wrong, but you suppressed it, and you supported the cause because you really believed that was the right thing to do. And then when you came to reality, when the reality came to you and you faced it, and you looked that reality into the eye, you looked that devil in the eye, you came to grips with it. And when you came to grips with it, you liberated your conscience. And now your conscience can speak, you see? You're like, it's all wrong, it's all evil, fuck it all. That's it. You liberated yourself, you allowed yourself to say that. What have I done? That's what these people are saying. What have I done? He and Fruchter definitely agree on one thing. And this is what this medical professional in Israel says. We're going to have many more people in the country with a moral injury. There's no question about it. People are beginning to process what they've done. Actions that may have been justified in the heat of the battle, but at the end of the fighting look completely different. So you're going to have a lot of soldiers in Israel who are going to be pissed off at the government, and you already have those, but I think their numbers are going to grow. So you're going to have all these soldiers against the government. And they're going to hate the hardliners. They're going to hate the Likudists. They're going to hate the Third Temple cultists. They're going to hate people like Ben Gvir and Smotrich. They're going to hate the settlers. They're going to hate those people. And it's going to cause massive conflict at a political, at spiritual, ideological level between people who are disillusioned with Israel, within Israel. And on the other side, it's going to be the hardliners and the Third Temple cultists and the people who believe in genocide. Something's going to happen. It's going to be a big conflict. And it could escalate into a civil war where the fanatics are going to hunt down the Jews who disagree with them. They're going to hunt down the Jews who disagree with genocide and the Third Temple cult. And I want to give you guys an example of what I'm talking about right here. This. Right here. This guy. This is the face of a Jewish man who was against the hardliners, and he was brutally beaten, not by Arabs, who Ben Shapiro said only believe in destruction while Jews only believe in building things up. No. He was brutally beaten by fellow Jews because he disagrees with the settler Third Temple cult ideology. And this is what this guy said. We may have reached the point where settlers try to kill Jews. And he's absolutely right. And this is not the first case of fanatical hardliners in Israel attacking fellow Jews because they disagree with them. There's been many cases of this, but this is just one of the cases that happened recently. And we'll try to read through this article here. For more than 20 years, Oded Yedaya has taken part in protests across the West Bank, photographing and documenting them. Though he has been injured before, nothing prepared him for what happened last weekend, when a hooded settler hurled a large stone at his head. The stone struck Yedaya's cheek, leaving a 5-centimeter deep gash beneath his eye and fracturing the bone. His body and clothes were drenched in blood. A photograph of his swollen, bloodied face quickly went viral. If the stone had hit him just a little higher or from behind, it would have killed him, says his wife. Yedaya is convinced that the attacker intended to kill him, or at least to cause serious harm. He aimed at my head deliberately, he says. The first stone hit my butt. But then he threw again, saw that he'd hit me and ran off. He was hooded, so I don't know who he was. But yes, definitely, the moment may have arrived when settlers are trying to kill Jews. We've been saying for a long time that it would come to this. And he's right. Because, guys, I've read the history. I've read the history. In 2021, I did an article about the coming civil war in Israel. 2021. Why did I write that article? I said there's going to be a civil war in Israel. Between who? The hardliners and the moderates. Why did I write that article? Because I read Josephus. And I told everyone to read Josephus, and I did multiple videos on Josephus. You can find them in this channel. I should probably make a whole playlist of them. Josephus recounted the Judean Civil War. A civil war that took place between Jews during the Second Temple era, during the latter part of the Second Temple era. Why was there a civil war? Basically, two reasons. One, the fanatic Jews were butchering the Jews who didn't agree with their ideology. Very interesting what happened. Well, it's tragic, but it's interesting at the same time. So they were butchering the Jews that did not agree with their radical zealot ideology. The hardliner Jews were called zealots. A lot of them were called zealots. And they butchered the Jews who were not as zealous or not as fanatical as they were. The Jews also began to kill each other over who was going to control Jerusalem and who was going to control the temple. And they butchered each other. They butchered each other. And what do we see today? We see people talking about building a third temple. We see Jews attacking other Jews. What we are witnessing are foreshadowers. Foreshadowers for what? More bloodshed between Jews. Foreshadower for a tragic time, when the Jews will kill one another. That's my belief. And I've been saying this since 2021. So it says here that he aimed at his head, etc., etc., and he said that the time has come. We have reached a time in history, in modern history, that is, when Jews are killing Jews. Here is the victim here. And it says here, he remembers little of the moments immediately after the blow. When I came to, my camera was gone, and I couldn't find it. I managed to locate my phone, but I couldn't send my location to my friends because it was covered in blood. I didn't yet understand how serious the injury was. I ran down to the bottom of the wadi where a Palestinian vehicle took me to a clinic. Hold on. Hold up. Wait a minute. Hold up. For years, we were told that if Palestinians see Jews in the West Bank, they would kill them. Here is a story of a Jewish man almost murdered by other Jews, by Jewish fanatics. He's left for dead, like the story in the Good Samaritan. Oh my God, this is like the story. This is like the Good Samaritan. Remember the story of the Good Samaritan? Jesus was trying to tell the Jews, hey, the foreigners aren't your enemy. Because the Jews thought the Samaritans are our enemy, the Romans are our enemy, the Greeks are our enemy. The Syrians are our enemy. The Arabs are our enemy, right? They hated foreigners. In the time of Jesus, it was a very racist time to be alive. They hated foreigners. And Jesus gives them the parable of the Good Samaritan. He says, okay, a Jewish man is walking. He gets attacked. He gets mugged, attacked, brutally beaten. They leave him for dead. A Jewish priest walks by and says, oh, I gotta go, I'm busy. Doesn't help him. Another guy walks by who's Jewish and Orthodox, sees the guy lying on the floor. I gotta go, I'm busy. I got no time for this. Then all of a sudden a Samaritan comes. And what does Jesus say? He says the Samaritan had compassion. That compassion gave him salvation. And the Good Samaritan picks the Jewish man up and takes him to an inn and heals him and gives him medical attention, etc., and saves the guy. Well, here's the story. Jewish guy in the middle of the West Bank gets attacked by fellow Jews, almost murdered by fellow Jews. Who saves him? A Palestinian. Palestinian. I thought they were all anti-Semites. I thought they were all like Hitler. I thought they were all Hitlerites. A Palestinian vehicle took me to a clinic in Beta. From their faces, I realized I was seriously hurt. Later, they took me to Tapach Junction, and from there, I was evacuated to Bellinson Hospital. I was bleeding the entire time. It only stopped once they stitched me up. Yediah believes the precision of the attack was possible because he had drifted away from the group. I was walking alone, and that was stupid. I told myself I wanted to get a proper shot of the stone throwing just once. There were 20 to 30 of us, Israelis, Palestinians, and foreign nationals. Others were injured too. A Reuters photographer was hit, as was Jonathan Polak, a graphic designer at Haaretz and left-wing activist. When you stay with the group, it's harder to be targeted. I was a fool. I was looking for a good angle. Yediah, a photographer and artist, is principal of the Minashar School of Art in Tel Aviv, which he co-founded with his wife, novelist, wrote it, Yediah, etc., etc. I mean, it's brutal. I mean, look what they did. They almost killed this man. They will go after other Jews. And this is not the first time that something like this has happened. This has happened numerous times. I've talked about this. But the settlers will attack Jews, and the IDF will even attack Jews who they see as their enemy because they're not fanatical enough. There's an IDF battalion that calls itself the Netza Yehuda Battalion. It's a brutal, fanatical IDF battalion. It consists only of hardliners, only of hardline Orthodox Jewish fanatics. It's an Israeli ISIS, so to speak. They will attack other Jews. They will go to settlements, and if settlers are acting violent, and the Israeli police come to stop it, the Netza Yehuda IDF battalion will encourage settlers to attack Israeli police officers. Fellow Jews. So they will kill one another, these people. They will turn on each other. Make no mistake.